no affinity whatsoever for genre or horror films. Still, to this day, I don't, even though we ended up making this really successful one, and I worked on Urban Legend too. No, I was the guy walking into that environment who knew less than anybody. You listen to Edgar Pablos and certainly Jamie. They're encyclopedias when it comes to horror film nerdism. And I didn't know what the references were. I didn't know the homages. I didn't know the camera angles. But I didn't need to do my job well. That wasn't incumbent upon me. Well, the very initial meeting was flying with him from LA up to Toronto. And, you know, it was January, I'm guessing, when we went up there in Toronto. And he was wearing shorts and a t-shirt and a pair of sneakers, and that was it. And didn't have anything more than that in his bag. And we were going up there to scout locations. And so we made a beeline to the equivalent of the Patagonia store at the time and got him all suited up. But my first impression was, this is a guy who's never seen snow before, and he's up here trying to make a movie, and we were feeling each other out. And I tried to give him as much, and I'm looking over to him while I'm saying this, as much reassurance and confidence as I could by just saying, we got this, it's gonna be fine. You know, we're gonna get through this, and it's gonna be really good, and I got your back. I love Gina. She's got unbelievably wonderful energy. We had a really good relationship. It was contentious sometimes because both of us were at places in our career where you want to plant your flag, like I am the producer, I am the producer. So she had a great relationship with Jamie, and I did too. And so I just read the little thank you card that she wrote me, which I haven't read in 20 years. And she said, it wasn't always easy, you know, we had our shares of ups and downs, but we came out of it really close. And yeah, the movie would never have been made without her. And yeah, so she was a great energy, and she's gone on to a terrific career too.
I don't even remember exactly how it came about, because I hadn't done anything like that really before. I think it was, for me, I was excited to play an adult because I had been playing like high school and younger than that. So I think 2 years before I was playing like 14 or 15. So I was pretty stoked to have a sex scene, even though it unfortunately was that kind of sex scene. And just to be a little bit edgy and a little bit darker and more mature than what I had been before. But then I remember seeing, Jamie showed us the opening with Jordan Ladd.
No, it was Natasha.
Natasha, yes, I always get them mixed up. With Natasha, and that was the urban legend that I remember hearing not too long before we shot the movie. When I got my driver's license, it was like, oh, I was like in the backseat of your car, you know? So I saw that cut together with the song choice, and I thought, oh my God, like I have chills. I thought, oh my God, I would have loved to do that role. Like that would have been really cool, because that was the one that like I thought was one of the scariest ones. So, but I'm still glad that I got to do Tosh and play a goth girl, which then I did started getting movie offers for goth girls after that all the time. I was like playing the bad edgy girl, which was always fun. You know, I mean, it was the beginning of like chat rooms and online dating and what could really happen. I don't even think Craigslist was a thing yet, but it was the beginning of this kind of disgustingness about how you meet people, and you just don't know who you're inviting into your life. And unfortunately, she learned the hard way, but it wasn't him. So it was, she's in a league of her own. No, as soon as I put the outfit on, I was like, wow, this is really cool. This is kind of awesome. I remember like the costumer bringing a bunch of stuff to our fitting and thought like, wow, this is so awesome. I get to wear like makeup and like smoke on film, which I'll never do again. I mean, I don't smoke. I smoked then in real life, and I was like, oh, I want to smoke in a movie because I'm cool, because I'm 20. It was just a bad idea. You don't realize you're going to be smoking like 800 cigarettes, so it was just disgusting. It just felt like it fit, you know? And even like the earring in the middle of the nose, like it just sort of, and the color lipstick and everything just kind of brought it all together. The greatest thing about horror movies, in my opinion, is that I would say all of the directors that I've worked with are fans. Like they start off as fanboys of the genre, where you don't see that in any other genre. So they're excited to be there, and there's like always this kind of giddiness behind the monitor because they're like watching you on screen, but it's their movie, so it's kind of a weird mix. I mean, he's super easy. He's an Aussie. Like, how much easier can you get? Yeah, I didn't even really have. I think I yelled at her. I think I had one scene where I yelled at her, but I was in the midst of being preoccupied. I mean, she was great. She seemed maybe a little overwhelmed by. She's a sweet, awesome, nice girl, and I think there was just a lot of stuff going on. So. I was kind of like, oh, I've been there, done that, and this is a much bigger production. The Halloween movies were like a quarter of the budget, not studio films, and I was working as a kid and nights and, freezing and 15-hour day, just like it was completely different for me than coming to like on a studio film where there was like real food and, So I think she's really sweet and, she was great. Well, Tara I knew because I had been her roommate for a long time before then. So I reconnected with her. I met Michael Rosenbaum, who became my friend he's still my friend for, many years after that. And I mean, I never saw never saw anybody else again,
Did you get a chance to see Robert England or Loretta Devine?
Oh yeah, I mean, I see Robert all the time. I mean, we do like conventions together. We've done other movies together, and usually we've done web series together and a whole bunch of stuff. So I always say like he should have his own travel show because all he does, like he knows everything about everything. Robert's great, so yeah. At the premiere, yeah. And I remember what I wore. Like I remember everything about it. I was so excited, and I thought it was great. I mean, it's still a huge classic horror movie that you watch it now and it still stands up. I mean, it's different. They took time making movies in the 90s. They don't really. Not a lot of movies. It's starting to change, I think, now that we're getting some recognition. But they're fun and difficult to do, so it definitely stands up. Not everybody's going to the movies anymore. I mean, I was watching an interview with Tarantino the other day and Leo, and they were talking about he was at some the convention for movie theater owners, and he owns the theater here, and he was just saying like you have to go to the theater. You have to see these movies in the theater. There's nothing like going to a movie theater and watching a movie. I don't care that you can get it on your computer can go to your television. Like I've got all of that stuff. It's just not the same. So nobody wants to spend the money anymore. And unfortunately, these movies get made for like $1 and they make tons and tons and tons of money, so nobody wants to spend money anymore. And I mean, I understand from a business business standpoint, but as far as filmmakers and actors, it's like you can't take a turd and polish it. Like you have to have something, and then you have to ask for a million favors. If you don't have any money, which we all do, I've done a ton of favors and have done a ton of favors done for me, and we all have to pay our bills, and times have changed. Maybe because they took time to do it and thought it out, and it was done with love, and it was smart, and it had elements of real things that we all heard growing up. It wasn't I hate to use this term, but it wasn't like about a boogeyman behind a mask, which is scary too, in a totally different way. I always say that like the scariest for me are the people that like are in your circle or your neighbor, like you don't really know. It isn't this big, CGI'd thing. And the movie moved fast. I think the pacing of the movie was great. The look of the movie was great. The score, there were a lot of elements that I think, the cast, I think all of the right parts were put together. And Neil Moritz knew how to make a great movie. He was making great teen movies, essentially. Did a ton of them around that time. And they're all great, all those movies. And you wonder, like, is it because of my age that I grew up watching these? Like, is it because I was 20 watching 20-year-olds? Is that why it's so great? I don't know. I wonder what kids would think of it now. I think a lot of time nowadays we're making movies in like 10 days and 12 days and 15 days, and it's like hurry up, get them in, get it done, and get them out. We got to get it going. And I think that thinking back to the friendships and the way things were on set and the camaraderie, and that's kind of what it's supposed to be, right? I mean, why do it unless you're going to have a good time doing it? So I think going into the next one, just making sure that's a part of it is really important. And doing movies that are not micro budgets, that you really do, like, people do care, and all the pieces are there, and you really want to show up and be a part of it and do a good movie. I mean, I recently ended up, another girl got cast in something that I would have liked to have done because she was a blogger and had a lot of followers, and my reps or whatever, I mean, it's like family, my team, I guess. I hate even saying that. It sounds so pretentious to even say that, but say like, oh, one thing I need to work on is really like boost my social media following. How? Like, I already feel like, why do they care? And it's so invasive to begin with. Like, that's a full-time job. For me, like, I have a kid, I'm pregnant. Like, the last thing I want to do is have to blow dry my hair, honestly, and put on makeup, and which is why I hate auditioning, because you have to like get ready for the role. If I can just go in my leggings and t-shirt and like throw my hair in a bun, I would love it if it was about what I could do in the room, not about what I looked like. So I think that it's I mean, even now the people that I do follow on social media, it's like everything's paid advertising. They're paid to say how much they like this or paid to say that. It's no longer like, you don't really get to know who these people are. And there's a difference between me and then the me that's on, my horror gal or my Halloween gal stuff. I have to kind of still keep that a little bit edgier because no one really cares. But then once I had a kid, I started posting real stuff. Like, do people really want to, like, my kid likes to bite me now. Like, how many videos do I need to put up of my kid biting me? Unless I put, like, zombie apocalypse as a hashtag, and then I'll get, like, 5,000 likes. But if I don't post something related to it, nobody really gives a shit. So I don't feel like I need to do that. And maybe I won't work as much, if I don't have millions of followers. But I don't have the time. And I'm older too, like, who does that? Like, I'm never on my phone. My phone's on silent. My husband's like, wear your freaking Apple Watch because like you never answer your phone. Like, I don't want to be on my phone. I don't want to have to do that stuff. I mean, it's unfortunate. I like to have conversations with people. I don't want to like be posting about my day all day, every day, and not be connected to like humanity and like see what's going on around me. It sucks. I don't understand how they coincide, like, I don't know. And I always, like, this is the part I lost out into this blogger, it's like, they're not, the people that follow this person's blog are really not going to be the people to go buy the DVD. So it doesn't matter if they have 3 million followers. I have a fan base of real human beings that will show up and are age appropriate, to be quite honest, that are in their 40s that still buy DVDs and go to the movie theater. So I actually have a higher, I'm worth a little bit more than this person that's got these followers on Instagram or whatever. But you're dealing with either older studio execs that are listening to the young people that are telling them what they need to do, or you're dealing with young people that don't know who you are, that are like, I don't know. Oh, she's old. Like, she was in that movie? I wasn't even born. And then they like, they want some pop singer out of that was on like America's Got Talent or whatever to like star in their movie. And it's unfortunate as a director. I mean, I'm directing now too. It's like you're sort of twisted and pushed into, if you want to make your movie, you have to do this. You don't really have a say anymore. Unless you're a big name unless you're Tarantino, where you don't have to answer to anybody. You don't have to get approval. Even Rob Zombie had to get approval from the Weinsteins, and it was still a fight. So, it's times have changed. Hopefully it'll get back to kind of taking control. I think the only way to do that is to make your own movies, which is back to like a rubber band and a penny, But oh well, at least you have more fun and and you're respected and you're doing good work. So we'll see what happens. Oh God, was talking to my husband about this. I was saying how they're really making it like you don't have to go anywhere anymore. Aside, like I get my groceries delivered. Like I don't have to go grocery shopping anymore. I get my food delivered. I don't have to leave my house to get everything I want. And like that. It's like Target, that day I can get it. You know, the grocery store, that day I can get it. So there's like this immediate gratification, as well as I don't have to be social. There was something great about, I used to have 2 or 3 hours, I'd go to Whole Foods and like pick up a cookbook and try to figure out like what I wanted to make for dinner for my friends, and we'd sit and we'd hang out, and it just doesn't really exist anymore. It sucks. So I don't know, I really hope my kids aren't like that, but my husband and I are 9 years apart, and there already is, like I already see that difference of like he's so quick to do everything, and like I mean we'll be sitting on the couch and we're texting each other, like it's so nuts to me, but you have to go with the times, I guess. I swore I would never give him an iPad, but when you're on an airplane, your kid's screaming and you're the asshole in first class that everyone's giving dirty looks to, you're getting puppy dog palaces going on.
iPads to learn from. So like,
Wow, I didn't even have computers. I had an encyclopedia. Like, yeah. I know how to do math in my head. I don't use my phone. My husband's like, he's a numbers guy. And I'm like, how? But you have to grab your phone to do your numbers. Like, I can just tell you what, so and so and so. Like, I don't, it's really crazy to me. Hey, well, this is again, I have this little age difference between my husband and I. And he's not in the business, so I knew there was going to be some issues with like he's not going to know actors and all that. But I can give a shit about that. I don't want to marry anybody in the business anyway, and because I don't want to talk about the business with someone. I dated only actors before him, and I was like, I'm done with that. That's great. I would be so dumb to marry an actor because they just want to talk about themselves anyway. Really, you interviewed enough of them for this. You know what I'm talking about. I've dated a few, so we were sitting outside. This is the only time that I really saw that there was a difference, and talking about like 90s versus today, and this will even go back a little bit further. And I got this invitation to a party, and I said, oh God, I don't really want to go, but if you want to go just to see, like to get an idea of like what this Hollywood could be like, I'll go. And he's like, whose party is it? And I said, it's Corey Feldman's. And he said, who's Corey Feldman? I was like, oh my God, are you serious? Are you serious? Like, well, I know the name. And I was like, oh my God. So hopefully fans of Urban Legend will be like, will remember the 90s, hopefully like the kids that watch it now will go back and go like, oh, I remember that girl was in this, or, that guy was in this. It won't be just Jared Leto that they know nowadays.
When looking at and sort of researching, and we had books and books and books of urban legends, right? And we sort of also knew that there's a possibility that this becomes a franchise. So we didn't want to use all the urban legends, and we would never have enough time. So we sort of went through and thought about the ones that also could be part of a story, could kind of have a beginning, a middle, and an end, could also confuse the audience a little bit and allow them to try to figure out. They weren't so short that the audience could try and, oh, I know what urban legend this is. And so they become part of the journey of the story that you're telling. And a great example is in the opening of the movie with Natasha Wagner, because it just seems just like a regular girl in the car. And you don't really know until the guy is stuttering. You're so afraid for her. You think he's gonna attack her, and the phone's hung up, and he's chasing after her, and it's pouring down rain. And when she's like, pulling away, and finally, because he has that bad stutter, and he says, there's someone in the back seat. The audience lost their minds. And of course, it helped that the song she was listening to on the radio is "Turn Around, Bright Eyes." And there's like a guy in the back seat, and you're like, turn around, turn around, turn around. And you just see the shadow of his axe. And then she's gone. So right away at the top of the movie, that's so important. We scare the audience, but they have a blast. And it's just a ride and fun. And in our first test screening, it totally worked. Making Urban Legend was filled with extraordinary moments for me and memories. It was my first movie, and I could spend hours talking about all the incredible memories that I have from that time. But if I have to pick one, which I know I do, you know, I'm from Eugene, Oregon. I come from a very small family. My mother's from Naples. My father was a butcher. I really had no business coming to California to have this dream of making movies. It just was not in the cards for me, but yet here I was. And my mother really never really understood what I did, and nor could she really support it. So I flew her to the set, and I made her a chair that sat next to Jamie, and it said Gina's mom on it. And she's this little Italian woman from Naples, and we're shooting the cafe scene, and she wants a coffee. She goes up and she wants to get a coffee because she doesn't understand that they're all extras, and this is a set, and this is a set. And so she sits back, and I'm sitting next to Jamie, and I have headphones for her, and she watches the scene of them in the cafe, and all the cast is there and everybody, and they were so wonderful to her. And she gets done, and we're watching the scene, and Jamie's like, and cut. And then he turns back to me, and he's like, well, what do you think? And I said, well, you know, I wonder, you know, it's got to be funny, but there has to be weight to it. And we're chatting, and he's like, yeah, great. And he goes to give the notes, and I turn to my mother, and she is in complete tears, so crying. And she goes, I finally understand what you do. You're a mother to all these people. And I said, yeah, I guess as a producer, I'm a mother to all these amazing people. And so she managed to convince Jared Leto, who nobody had ever been in his house the entire time, to allow her to cook a homemade Italian meal from Naples for the whole cast and everybody in his perfectly meticulous white apartment or house that nobody had been in. And she did. She cooked this incredible meal. So she was also the mother to all these amazing people. And that to me was when my past and my personal life and my professional life kind of came together in a way that I don't think I'll ever have again. So.
The only horror film I think I looked at was John Carpenter's Halloween. But if you look at John Carpenter's Halloween, it looks like a European art film. It looks like a horror film done by Antonioni. It's got long Steadicam shots. It's 2-3-5 again. It's all the things that we liked that subsequent directors didn't do. You know, and you know, it's going for the cheap money and the cheap laughs. That just wasn't us. I think the films of the '70s were very influential to me. Films of Vilmos Zsigmond and Laszlo Kovacs had shot, you know, from Easy Rider forward, but things like McCabe and Mrs. Miller, Deliverance, which Deliverance has a lot of horror in it, you know, but it's a serious drama. So I always had gravitated towards serious dramas and not comedy at all. I had a background in documentaries, so you know, this was all new to me. And then you're out on the streets of Hollywood trying to get a job, and couldn't get a job in movies to save myself initially. And luckily, music videos had come along, and I did all the West Coast hip hop. I did the first music videos of NWA. I shot straight out of Compton. I did the first music videos of Hammer, Too Short. I did some work of Tone Loc and those characters, and I did the Hammer work led to work of James Brown. So I built up a large portfolio of music video work that had a lot of freedom. In shooting that, there was a lot of freedom. I hadn't gone through the rite of passage of a lot of Hollywood cinematographers that were working for Roger Corman and shooting a horror film. I interviewed for them, and usually they were just so offensive to me because not just because of the content, they were just too low budget and too just tacky, cheesy. There was one I went for, and the people were being sawed up with bandsaws. Little did I know that would become a whole genre later. So I had been shooting movies and shooting television movies, had left music video world. I never shot a big movie, and that was a goal of mine. The Witches of Eastwick, George Miller directing, Vilmos Zsigmond shooting. I learned so much from that. George would move the camera incredibly, this really inventive, intricate, difficult moves, often 360. Vilmos would accommodate with his lighting, somehow make it lush and gorgeous and still make all those moves happen and execute it. Watching that relationship with the director cinematographer was really influential to me. And I say, wow, I could do that. I couldn't do it before I saw that. When Urban Legend came along and I started talking to Jamie about how we would shoot it, and he said widescreen, and I said widescreen. And that goes against the genre of horror films. You don't see horror films in that day shot in widescreen. But Witches of Eastwick had this horror element to it, Deliverance, horror element, those are widescreen movies. So why not take a serious dramatic approach to a horror film? 235 is harder to shoot because you have things that focus is more shallow, so it's technically more demanding for the cinematographer, but the look you get is great. And also, there's a lot of group shots, so 235 has an advantage in the sense that you have 2s and 3 shots, and the scenes play better and are more natural. So the film is more cinematic and less cutty than let's say in TV and 178. When talking to Jamie before I was hired, and then in prep, that's what appealed to me. As we scouted locations, we looked for, we can do this shot here, dialogue, and then there's a little single or a close-up there, or there's a scary moment. And playing it, not always playing it in one, but playing it in 1 or 2 shots. Really showing the architecture and the location. I think that's important. A lot of films, certainly it happens in TV more, but even in films, it's very, very cutty, and it's like radio. With headshots. So that's not filmmaking. Cutting, someone says this, someone says this, someone says this, someone says this. That's not filmmaking, that's radio with pictures. And what we set out is to make something cinematic. I had complete freedom on the lighting on Urban Legend. I mean, it was Jamie's trust in me and encouragement, dark, spooky, but make it real. So I think a lot of horror films are lit in a crude way, so it's an artificial kind of darkness. They're gothic. It would be kind of a pushing it in a way that's not realistic. So this was a thing of like, we're in an environment and it's normal, and then she walks there and it goes darker and darker and darker, but we still see with the action of what's happening. So that was a tremendous challenge for me visually. Sometimes the death of Josh Jackson's character when he was pulled up on the rope, that was down in that valley. We had 2 lights in the scene, basically. A BB light, a giant light with 12Ks on it, shining down. Sorry, a giant light with 6 12Ks shining down, lighting the valley. And then in the car, a little tiny micro fluorescent light, a little eye light in this giant scene. So I think at the time I was pushing the envelope of what film could do. It was exciting for me and risky. Jay Cassidy would always call me up. He was watching the daily. He'd see them before me, and he'd say, "Hey, you better come and look at this. I want to see if this is too dark." And I go and say, "Yeah, that's a little too dark." We pushed it. So I think that was important. How to make it dark and full of tension, but also see the landscape and see the architecture. If you look at a lot of horror films, at Night's Exterior, you don't see anything. There's like a tree. But we lit a whole valley, or we lit a whole campus. And then add rain into the mix. We had these giant shots of rain and cars going through rain down the highway. I mean, it was a real challenge for me. The only studio work was some of the work in the rain inside the Jeep at the end, where Rebecca's stabbing Jared. I think some of that was done in the studio, but it was like, not a studio, because we had thousands of gallons of water pounding on that car. I mean, it was deafening. You literally could not hear. There was so much water we were using. I think we achieved everything we set out to achieve. And sometimes in the course of doing a scene, it's like, well, we don't need that shot. I think if you look at the storyboard, there's more shots in it. We found, because we were shooting 235, you could do things in one, and we discovered, wow, it's more real. You're really there. This is really happening. You're not cutting to something. Because as soon as you put a cut in, you're almost telling the audience something bad's going to happen. But by not cutting, by letting the action flow and happen in its own pace, it's much more real, and I think creates more tension. The audience is waiting for something, and sometimes it doesn't happen. That's the other great thing. We were just the lucky fortuitous circumstance that we had the right line producer, Michael McDonald, and a good production manager. It was great crew. I had a great camera crew. Peter Rosenfeld was I kind of discovered Peter. Peter had only been doing TV movies, but he had one film on his reel. It was a Steadicam shot from Shanghai Triad in China. Peter was a news photographer. He got interested in Steadicam, and he became the first Steadicam operator in China. And then he came back to Canada, but people didn't know him in the movies. He was doing these little low-budget films, and he said he was by far and away the best Steadicam operator. So he went on to work with Catherine Bigelow and David Fincher, and he's David Fincher's operator. So Peter, we salute you. Great operator, great colleague, and again, we said it's a serious film, and we treat it serious, But that was sort of a break for him because it was discovering that young talent. He's a young guy, hadn't done much, but I saw that he was good. He was really, really good. I later hired him for the work on Chicago. I did a big chunk of reshoots on Chicago, and there was a very difficult shot, and I said, Peter Rosenfeld's going to do this shot. So I loved working with Loretta Devine. She was very funny, and she was very doubtful, I think, of the quality of this movie. And she probably said, well, I'm the token black lady in this, But she was really a trooper. We loved working with her. I worked with her in subsequent projects. Then about 3 years ago, I've been doing American Horror Story. And this cinematographer of Scream Queens, Michael Goy, called me up and said, we're behind. Can you come down and shoot some scenes for Scream Queens? So, sorority girls getting murdered on campus is kind of similar genre. So I go on set. I don't know anything about what I'm shooting that day. I'm looking at the pages. There's a security guard's Jeep. And I go, wow, that looks familiar. And then I look over and I see an African-American woman. I thought it was Loretta Devine, and different actress. And she had the same kind of frumpy outfit and a gun and holster, all that gack. And then we're doing the scenes, and it's a scene from Urban Legend. It's the same scene. So I'm sitting there with the director goes, I've shot this scene before. And he turns to me and says, yeah, I stole it from Urban Legend. The thing that cinched it for me, after the movie was done, I saw Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert arguing about the film. Roger Ebert liked the film. And Gene Siskel jumped on him and said, oh, you can't. It's just a horror film. Oh, Roger, what's wrong with you? And he kind of bullied him. And Siskel went into this little rant, and he said, the problem with this film is it looks too good. Horror films are supposed to be cheesy and cheap, and the filmmakers are kind of winking at you at the audience. It's not really serious. But this film looks like a real movie, in so many words. And I think that's kind of a backhanded compliment to what we did. Yeah, you forget about work you've done in the past, and then some people ask what feature have you done, and you kind of say Urban Legend. They go, oh, Urban Legend, wow. And so it always jumps out. And it did help me later in my career when I did American Horror Story. I did season 4 Freak Show with Michael Goy. We shot it together. And certainly the lessons of Urban Legend I applied there. And that was a similar circumstance with Ryan Murphy producing and directing, wonderful director to work with. Creative freedom. See, and that we had that on American Horror Story. You don't always get that in films. The degree of freedom and creativity is expressed, and I have a team that supports it.